Cities in America are often expensive due to various factors that contribute to the high cost of living. One significant reason is the high demand for housing in urban areas. As cities grow in population and attract more people for job opportunities and amenities, the demand for housing increases, leading to higher prices. Additionally, limited availability of land for development in cities can drive up property prices. Other factors such as high taxes, cost of living, and infrastructure expenses also play a role in the overall expense of living in American cities. The high cost of living in certain parts of the United States has been a source of increasing worry for a number of years, most notably over the previous few decades. Numerous economic, social, and political variables that have led to increased housing costs, rising service demand, and income inequality all have an impact on this issue. Each of these elements has contributed to the cause that it represents. Each of these elements has contributed in some way to the problem under consideration. In order to comprehend the elements that contribute to the high cost of living in American cities, a thorough examination of these intricate dynamics is needed. One of the main causes of the high cost of living in American cities is the large discrepancy between the quantity of housing that is needed and the quantity that is now available. Urban areas have experienced spectacular population growth over the previous few decades due to a variety of factors, including the availability of labor opportunities, the allure of city amenities, and lifestyle choices. The demand for housing is expected to increase exponentially as more people relocate into metropolitan regions. However, in many instances, the supply of housing has not been able to meet the demand for housing. This predicament is caused by a number of factors, including strict zoning regulations, a shortage of suitable land, and regulatory obstacles that make new development challenging and costly. Zoning laws, in particular, have had a major role in limiting the availability of housing, especially affordable housing. These regulations frequently restrict the kinds of constructions that can be built. For example, developments with a high population density, like apartment complexes, are subject to restrictions. Furthermore, despite being more expensive and requiring more land than other types of residences, single-family homes are prioritized. Prices are rising in both the rental and real estate sectors because there are so few options for affordable housing in urban regions. This is a direct result of the limited number of available housing options. As a result, those who can afford to pay more are the ones who are responsible for raising prices, while those with lower incomes are compelled to either commute from the suburbs, move to less desirable areas, or reside in homes that do not adhere to socially acceptable standards. Gentrification is the process by which lower-class citizens leave their communities due to the influx of higher-class individuals and the resulting rise in property values. The process via which gentrification has transpired has been made widespread by this imbalance in the housing market. This particular tendency is responsible for both the rising expense of living and the decline in the cultural and social diversity that characterizes many urban places. An additional significant factor contributing to the elevated expense of living in urban areas is the concentration of well-paying jobs in select sectors, especially in the domains of technology, finance, and professional services. The United States is a country where this trend is very common. These businesses have made cities like San Francisco, New York, and Boston their hubs, which helps them draw in highly educated and well-compensated labor. This is a result of these cities becoming into major hubs for industry. The influx of wealth has helped the local economies, but has also resulted in higher prices for housing, services, and goods. There is a significant gap between the rich and the working class as a result of incomes in other industries not keeping up with the rising cost of living in many circumstances. The two groups now differ significantly as a result of this discrepancy. People who work in low-paying jobs find it difficult to cover their expenses for necessities like food, rent, and healthcare. This is due to the existing economic disparity, which makes resolving the affordability issue much more challenging. The high expense of living in cities is further compounded by the condition, or lack thereof, of the transportation infrastructure, or more precisely, the absence of infrastructure for transportation. People find it difficult to live farther away from the central business districts of the cities, where housing may be more reasonably priced because public transportation options are limited in many American cities, especially those on the West Coast. Residents often have no alternative but to rely on their own cars when living in places without sufficient public transportation options. This raises the amount of money those residents must pay for upkeep, insurance, and gas, which raises their overall cost of living. Even cities like New York City, which have robust public transportation systems, still have problems. Congestion and antiquated infrastructure are two of these issues, which can result in longer travel times and higher maintenance and repair expenses for the city. Numerous factors have the ability to raise the cost of living in American cities. Taxes and other local levies are additional issues. Urban areas typically impose greater tax rates than suburban or rural areas do in order to finance public services, including transportation, social services, public safety, and education. This is not how things are in suburban or rural places. For financial reasons, paying property taxes can be quite difficult for homeowners whose properties are situated in high-value cities. Additionally, cities may have greater sales taxes and other municipal taxes than other cities in order to help cover the costs of upkeep of infrastructure and provision of services to a big population. This is carried out to assist with cost coverage. Among the many factors driving up the cost of living in cities is the rising expense of healthcare. This pattern is also influenced by a variety of other factors. While the cost of healthcare is a national issue, its effects are often felt more acutely in urban areas where living expenses are already rather high. The increased expense of living in metropolitan regions is the reason for this. Although there are often more hospitals and specialized medical facilities in cities, these establishments are able to provide high-quality care. Nonetheless, treatment costs, prescription costs, and insurance premiums are generally greater in cities. In metropolitan areas, there's typically a greater demand for healthcare services. This increases competition for appointments and quickens the process of cost inflation. Additionally, rural communities usually have a higher need for healthcare services. Another explanation is that the rising expense of living in metropolitan regions is a result of the social and cultural expectations that are common in cities. People typically identify urban regions with a specific style of life that involves dining out, attending events, and engaging in other types of entertainment. This is the general consensus. These comforts are expensive, even if they are a major factor in the allure of city living. In spite of this, the attraction of city life lies in it. Because they have to pay more for rent and operating expenses, restaurants, bars, theaters, and other entertainment venues in metropolitan locations typically have higher prices. The people who have bought the product are the ones who pay the increased prices once they have been passed on to customers. This is the reason why many who live in cities believe that in order to enjoy the urban lifestyle, they must spend more money on social activities. Their experience of an increased expense of life is further exacerbated by this viewpoint. It's critical to consider the larger political and economic context that has influenced the cost of living in American cities. Ultimately, it is advised that this factor be taken into account. The government has implemented numerous policies over several decades that have contributed to the current housing crisis. The federal government's decision to stop funding affordable housing initiatives is one of these measures. Simultaneously, the increasing impact of corporations on local planning and development has resulted in the preference for commercial and luxury housing developments over possibilities for affordable accommodation for those with lower and intermediate incomes. This is because corporations make up a larger portion of the decision-making process. The lack of a coherent national housing plan has left localities to deal with these issues on their own, sometimes with limited resources and conflicting goals. As a result, the communities are now compelled to handle these difficulties independently. Several reasons contribute to the high cost of living in American cities, including limited housing availability, rising demand, severe zoning regulations, economic inequality, inadequate transit infrastructure, high taxes, and rising healthcare expenses. In summary, a convergence of concerns has led to the high expense of living in American cities. These and other factors also contribute to the high expense of living. Coordinated actions at the municipal, state, and federal levels will be required to solve these problems. This is due to the intricate connections between these issues. The issue can be solved in a number of ways, such as by changing zoning laws, investing more in affordable housing, enhancing public transportation, and implementing measures to lessen economic inequality. However, there's a good chance that the expense of living in American cities will keep rising if meaningful changes are not done. The residents there would be even more burdened by this, especially the lower income ones. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.